So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship Call 2022. My name is Samrat. I work for Access here in India, and I'm very happy to bring to you today this very important webinar on how to get, how to win Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship. This fellowship, as you might know, is one of the world's most prestigious fellowships, and it's open to researchers from all nationalities and all scientific disciplines. You're able with this fellowship to conduct research at any host institution in Europe across more than 40 European countries. You will hear more about that in a few minutes. Though it's a very competitive grant scheme, Indian researchers have been very successful in cracking this grant in the past. To be precise, Indian researchers are amongst the largest beneficiaries of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship in the last couple of years. Now, our session today is to help the next generation of candidates from India to apply for this prestigious fellowship. And we are very optimistic that today, after listening to our main speakers, you will be much more equipped to start your preparation and to apply for this fellowship. Now, before I introduce our speakers of today to you, let me just tell you that we will record this webinar and you will get the recording afterwards. You will also receive the presentations from us afterwards. And we will also have the possibility to ask your questions in the Q&A. Please put them in the Q&A, not in the chat. Put them in the Q&A box. And we will get, at the end of the session, we will get to answer your questions as far as possible. Now, let me introduce to you our main speaker today, Dr. Anouk Lafortune. She's policy officer at the MSCA unit at the DG EAC at the European Commission in Brussels. A very good afternoon or good morning to you, Anouk.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speakers are MSCA Fellows from India. We are very happy that we have invited two of them who have cracked this grant and are currently on their fellowship in Europe. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Shreya Ayub. She's at the Max Planck Institute in Göttingen, Germany, joining us from Germany today. A very warm welcome to you, Shreya.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will tell you a little bit more about Shreya, or she will tell a bit more about herself at the later stage of this session. Our next MSCA Fellow today here is Dr. Nana Sahib Thorat. He's a fellow and research scientist at the University of Oxford at the moment, and joining us from Oxford, I suppose, right, Nana Sahib?
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for being part of this session.
Thank you, Samrat.
So just a last piece of information for you guys out there. This is the start of a webinar series on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship. Today is the first part, but then we also will have dedicated sessions on the hosting offer, the opportunities of European institutions who would like to host Indian researchers under the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship scheme. So you see the dates are there on this slide, 16th June, 23rd of June, and 1st of July. And we will share more information very shortly on our website, okay? So please mark those dates, save those dates. This is a very important webinars for you if you still have not found a host institution and you're looking for a potential host in Europe. Okay, now without further delay, I stop my screen and I go over to Brussels to Anouk.
Thank you, Samrat. I'll try to share my presentation and you let me know if it's as it should be. Can you see it?
Yes.
Up, I think, perfect. Okay. Great. Well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here with you today and with such a big audience as well. Indeed, so I'm I work for the European Commission. I'm the policy officer responsible for the postdoctoral fellowships action in the Commission. I used to be a researcher in a previous life, but I've since followed another career path, and in the public in the public sector. So what I'll do with my presentation is I'll first give you an introduction to the MSCA. Where does it stand in European research, in the European research program and in European research policies? What are the core objectives of the MSCA as a program? And then give you an overview of the different actions that we have and that you could also be interested in. And then finally, I'll then go into more detail into the postdoctoral fellowships and the kind of essential information you need to know when you're preparing or if you're considering preparing an application. So the MSCA, for short, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, we are not on our own. We are part of a much bigger program for research and innovation of the European Union. And within this program, that it has 3 different pillars, we sit in the pillar that's related to and that promotes excellent science. And MSCA is there alongside the European Research Council that provides also funding for individual researchers, so that you may also have heard of. And so the focus of the MSCA is very much on excellent research, on excellent science, just like the European Research Council. But in addition to this, compared to something like the European Research Council, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, we also have a focus on training and providing opportunities for career development for the researcher. So we have these 2 aspects of excellent science, excellent research, and excellent training and excellent opportunities for the researchers that are part of our program. The kind of core objectives that we have are indeed, like I was saying, the focus on training, skill development, skill building. We also have, and actually, ever since the program was created in '96, so 25 years ago, we always have had a focus on excellence and on research that is bottom up. So it's led by the researchers, led by the organizations participating in our program. They develop their proposal, they develop their project, they submit it to MSCA, and if they're successful, they implement it. The other focus that we have, which is very important to us, is mobility. And again, this has always been a part of our program ever since the first MSCA Marie Curie Fellows. And when we talk about mobility in MSCA, we talk about the 3 types of mobility. We talk about international mobility, so physical, moving from one country to another; interdisciplinary mobility, so moving, collaborating and moving between disciplines; and intersectoral mobility. So a bit like my background, getting experience, getting transferable skills that allows you to connect research with academic research, with non-academic sectors, with maybe a career outside academia, or research outputs that go beyond academic, traditional academic outputs as well. So these are part of, this is a very important aspect of the program as a whole. And in particular, we notably focus on collaboration with industry and with SMEs to foster innovation. So the transfer, the reuse of research, scientific breakthrough into innovations. We have a budget for the whole for the 7 years to come of 6.6 billion, and we are, as I was saying before, we have a worldwide coverage. We are actually, and these are some of the figures that I'm showing now. We are one of the most international components of this Horizon Europe research and innovation program, with over a third of our researchers in MSCA coming from outside the EU. And the international aspects is very important to the program. Now, just to give you a few ideas of figures, and Samrat already mentioned it a little bit, but India's participation in our program, we can see that the previous 7 years, we indeed have a very high number of Indian researchers, the most represented the nationality actually among our fellows. But we have few participation from Indian organizations, although there are opportunities as part of MSCA for Indian organizations to participate in our different actions. And now I come to the kind of 5 main actions that we have under MSCA, which all target different researchers at different stages of their career and with different objectives in mind. We do cover, all our actions cover researchers throughout their career. But we have actions like the doctoral networks, that is on the top left, for example, that will focus on developing doctoral programs, for example. Then we have the postdoctoral fellowships, which, as the name says, focus on researchers that already have their PhD, but are still in their early academic career and looking at developing their skills, developing their career opportunities by implementing a research project, a little bit what we call the training through research. Through the postdoctoral fellowships. At the bottom left, we have actually a co-fund, which also this is more interesting in this case here for individual researchers, because co-fund actually funds programs for both PhD researchers and postdoctoral researchers. And you can find all the offers of the projects on the Euraccess website. So you can look for opportunities there if you're a researcher to try and find projects that are funded in your field and on your field of expertise. And then on the top right corner, we have staff exchanges, which is quite different from our other actions because it's focused not on a full-time fellowship, but on short mobilities. So the idea is really to foster collaboration between organizations and focusing on international collaboration and intersectoral collaboration, so between academic and a wide range of non-academic sectors, to produce both training and research outcomes. So staff exchanges, it's much shorter mobility. There are possibilities to also do several of them when you are already a staff in a partner organization in a staff exchange project. And it can be at any time of their career. So you could be a PhD student, a postdoc, a supporting staff, a very well-established lecturer, professor, and you could have access to these short-term mobility opportunities. And finally, MSc and Citizens, which is our outreach action. So this is an action that is linked to our annual event that are the European Researchers Nights, for example. But this, I won't go into more details. And now I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the postdoctoral fellowships. What is it? What are the main objectives in terms of research and training? And then cover a little bit more about the opportunities, the types of fellowships you can do, and the eligibility conditions to apply this year. To apply if you're interested. So as I was saying before, essentially the postdoc fellowships, it targets researchers that already have a PhD that are still early in their career. And the idea is the researcher actually is lead in designing, in preparing the proposal for the fellowship, and applies jointly with at least one host organization that we call the beneficiary. And then there can be additional organizations supporting the fellowship, providing additional training, additional experience as well. But really the idea is that we fund an excellent research project by a early career researcher for them to, contribute to knowledge, contribute to science, but also contribute to their future career and to their skill development as a researcher and for the rest of their career. And again, we have this focus in postdoctoral fellowship on the mobility and the three types of mobility that I mentioned before. So researchers and projects that have aspects of international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary mobility and collaboration. So this is really the aim of the postdoctoral fellowships. I was giving I always give this example who comes it comes from an interview that we did for women for Women's Day, and we had a series of interviews on women in science. Among them, Dr. Priya Satalkar was a postdoctoral fellow, and I think her experience of the fellowship, as she described it in her interview, gives you an idea of the breadth of experience that you can have in a postdoc fellowship. So she had her fellowship in Belgium at a university called Ghent. But during her fellowship, she also included a secondment, where she went for 4 months to the World Health Organization in Geneva, and secondments can be done worldwide now. This is new from last year, and so she really increased her experience, her knowledge of research on the social health policies by doing her project at Ghent University, but by linking it with a non-academic experience at the World Health Organization. And since then, she has found a job after her fellowship, still in Belgium, and continues her career in academia. In terms of the postdoc fellowships, we offer 2 types of fellowships. For researchers here, I think the one that will be most interesting is the one on the left, the European Fellowship, because the idea is that the European fellowships are open to all nationalities, to researchers from all nationalities, for them to come to Europe. So when I say Europe, I mean the Union member states, as well as the associated countries to the research, the EU research program. So it's geographically it's wider than Europe, but for short, I'll say Europe from now on, but bear this in mind. So it's the European fellowships are for researchers from anywhere in the world to come to Europe to implement an excellent research project and develop their skills and career opportunities. It lasts from a year to 2 years max for the European fellowships. It also, I should say, I mean, both European and global cover all fields of research. So you can be from social sciences to physics to even to information and engineering sciences to even nuclear research as well from very recently. And then, so this is the European fellowships. The global fellowships, the idea of the global fellowships is that actually researchers that are already either European or based in Europe gain experience in a third country. And so they go to a third country to acquire skills, to acquire to develop collaborations, to start their research projects, and then they come back to Europe to bring it together and to bring back the knowledge and skills that they have learned back to Europe. And in this case, global fellowships would be interesting for Indian organizations because obviously you would be eligible to be a host in a third country. Which means that you would be able to have an excellent researcher for up to 2 years in your university and your institution, and then maintain that collaboration both with the researcher, but also with the organization in Europe throughout and after the fellowship as well. There are other possibilities during the fellowship. And one of them, I mentioned it earlier when I was giving the example of a former fellow, is the possibility to do secondments. And secondments, they can be done anywhere in the world for up to a third of the fellowship duration. So for example, if you have a 1 year fellowship, you could do up to 4 months of secondment. Bear in mind that for global fellowship, that third only takes into account the time spent in the third country. So that means it's also just it's also between a year to 2 years. The secondments can be done in either, you can do just one secondment for a certain period of time, or you can also do several shorter secondments in different organizations. If you think that actually your research and your own career development could benefit from collaborations, from experience in different organizations. So there is a lot of flexibility with the secondments. They can be done also in any sector. So if you want to acquire experience in the non-academic sector, or if you want to have set up a collaboration with another university, those are all possibilities that you can do with a secondment as well. You do need to mention the secondments that you're planning to do in your proposal, and you need to make it clear how they are in line with your project objectives, with your career development plans, and how they add significant value and impact to your fellowship. And another opportunity that we have is the non-academic placements, which is also, this is very new. So we offer it as of the call from last year, 2021. So we actually have not yet had a placement taking place, but they will start to take place in the coming years. And this is a very interesting opportunity because the idea is it adds an extra 6 months to your funding in order to give you time to do this placement at the end of your research project. So let's say, for example, you have a European fellowship for 2 years, 24 months, and you conduct your research in your host organization for these 2 years. And afterwards, you add a non-academic placement. So you add 6 months to your 24 months of funding. So a total funding for 30 months. And that gives you the chance to go to a non-academic organization in Europe to see, on one hand, obviously the idea is to expand your career opportunities outside, possibly outside academia, but also stimulate exchange and knowledge transfer between academic research and the non-academic sectors, and explore possibilities to exploit your research results in different ways beyond the academic research outputs that are publications and so on. So as I was saying, it's always at the end of the project. It adds an extra period to your grant, so you get additional money to fund this placement. It has to be it's an integral part of your proposal. So you really need to demonstrate in your proposal the added value for your research and for the impact of the fellowship on more widely, and also on you as a researcher. You really need to have a strong rationale for the placement and for the choice of placement host. The placement has to be taking place in a non-academic organization in Europe. And ultimately, the host organization for the placement has to provide a letter of commitment together, so at proposal stage. So when you submit your proposal, you have to submit a letter of commitment from your placement host committed. So the host committing to have you as a researcher, to host you as a researcher for that period of time. Now, just to highlight to again emphasize that this must be done, that the non-academic placement must be done in the non-academic sector. So while we have quite a broad definition of non-academic, there are organizations that may be public, for example, but are not considered non-academic because their full focus is on research. So these organizations would not be eligible to be placement hosts. This is a summary of the difference between secondments and non-academic placements. We'll share the PowerPoint afterwards, so it just gives you this overview of the possibilities and what you need to do if you're interested in either of these options. Now we move on to the eligibility conditions for the call. There are specific conditions that apply for the individual researcher, and there are also eligibility conditions that apply for the participating organizations. Now, for the organizations side, when you submit a postdoctoral fellowships, you must have a beneficiary. And the beneficiary is the host organization in Europe. So for the European fellowship, it's your main host that you are applying with for your postdoc. For a global fellowship, it would be the host of the returning phase when the researcher comes back to Europe. It's the organization that that will sign the grant agreement, that will also receive the funding and manage the grant for the project. And it must be an organization that is in EU member states or countries associated to our research, to Horizon Europe, the EU research program. Yes, and for global fellowships, if you're interested in this, you need that beneficiary in Europe. You also need a host in a third country to act as a partner, as an associated partner in the project. And that partner must also, just like the placement, submit a letter of commitment with the proposal. And the associated partner must also provide a supervisor in their organization so that the researcher is supervised in their host institution in Europe, but also in the time during the time that they spend in the third country as well. Now, just to kind of clarify what we mean when we're talking about EU member states, associated countries to Horizon, so specifically associated countries, here you have a full list, and third countries. Now, bear in mind that we are in a transition period between the previous research program, which was called Horizon 2020, and the new one, which is called Horizon Europe. And so not all association are finalized, and there are transitional arrangements that are in place, which means that actually if a country is in the process of associating, let's say, you can apply with organizations from that country for European fellowship, for example. But if the country has not joined the Horizon Europe program by the time that you need to sign your grant agreement, then there is a risk that we cannot sign the grant. So there is a risk of your project then becoming ineligible. So you can see the list. I've split the list between those agreements in place and those in process for your information. And now we move on to the eligibility conditions for individual researchers. And in that case, I mentioned some of it before, but European fellowships are open to any nationality anywhere in the world. The global fellowships are only open for national or long-term residents from EU member states and associated countries of Horizon. And then we have also some restrictions when it comes to research on to nuclear research linked to a program called Euratom. The researchers also, there are other eligibility conditions for the researchers which relate to the fact that you must have a PhD at the time of the call deadline or have defended successfully your PhD at the time of the call deadline, which means you need to be able to demonstrate that indeed your defense was successful if you do not yet have the degree itself. You cannot have more than 8 years of research experience after your PhD. And in that, we really mean research experience. So there are a lot of time that can be taken out of the 8 years. If, for example, you worked outside research in the private sector, if you have had long-term leaves, maternal leave, for example, sick leave, or various types of career breaks as well. And finally, another rule that's very important is the mobility rule, because it's the iconic rule of MSCA, is you cannot have resided or carried out your main activity, so your work or your studies in the country of where you're doing your fellowship. So in this case, the host in Europe for the European Fellowship and the host in the third country for global fellowships. And you cannot have resided or carried out your activity for more than 12 months, so for more than a year over the last 3 years in that country. And finally, you can only submit one proposal as a researcher. That's not the case for organizations, but in your case, you can only submit one proposal per call. Just a few kind of details on the exceptions to the 8-year research experience, and also links that you will have access to on how to calculate the 8 years if you're not quite sure if you meet or not that eligibility criteria. And then finally, we also have a new condition that is for the first time being applied under this call, and it's a condition related to resubmissions. So essentially, it only concerns, if there are some among you, those that have submitted an application in 2021. If you've had a score below 70% in 2021, you would not be able to reapply with the same organization under the call of in 2022. So bear that in mind if you've indeed submitted an application last year. And this rule will continue to be applied from now on. So if you apply this year, bear in mind that you would have the same restrictions if you wanted to reapply in 2023. So the key figure here is less than 70% for the score, the evaluation for the score that you got in the previous call. Yes, I wanted to, before going into more details into the award criteria and how we evaluate applications, when you're preparing your proposal, bear in mind that we have this link with between postdoctoral fellowships and this new scheme called the ERA fellowships. And essentially the evaluation is connected for these two calls. So when you submit your postdoctoral fellowship application, if your host institution in Europe, and this is only valid for European fellowships, but if your host organization, your beneficiary, is located in a widening country, now the list is on the right-hand side, so you can have a look, you would be eligible to be considered for the ERA fellowships. And essentially the idea is that it gives you, so you apply to MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships, you opt in to be considered for ERA fellowships. And if you if your application is not funded, but is ranked quite high, then it could be selected to be funded through an ERA fellowship. So it gives you an extra chance to be funded with that same proposal that you submitted for postdoctoral fellowships. So this is also something to bear in mind, and don't forget, if you do have a beneficiary that is eligible for the ERA fellowships, do not forget to tick this box to opt in the ERA fellowship when you're submitting your proposal. So you are considered and you have another chance at being funded. And now regarding the award criteria, just like most calls and or most actions under the Horizon Europe program, we assess evaluations based on three main criteria, which are excellence. And in our case, it's worth 50% of the score of your proposal. The second criteria is impact, and then which is worth here for postdoctoral fellowships, 30% of your score, and quality and efficiency of the implementation, worth 20% of your score. And under each of those criteria, you have sub-criteria that are listed here. What I wanted to emphasize is obviously we assess the quality of the research project, so how innovative, how ambitious the research project's objectives are. We assess the methodology as well, but we also assess the wider impacts of the research project, and including for the researcher. So in terms of impacts on their career development, on their skill development, and the impacts of the research project itself, and what expected outcomes, what expected impacts will your research have, and not just academic, but also not just scientific, but also societal and economic impacts as well. And then finally, if you look at the award criteria in more details, you will see that the other aspect is assessing the entire team of the project. So, we assess the quality of the supervisors in the different organizations. So, for a European fellowship, it would be just the one supervisor in your host institution. For global, you would have two. We also assess the profile of the researcher, and looking at it very broadly, we look at the researchers, the postdoc researchers' experience, their competences, their skills, and we look at it quite broadly, not just focusing on let's say, academic, you know, the common academic indicators that can be used. We do not use metrics, for example, to assess the publication record and so on. And finally, we also assess the entire, under the third criteria, efficiency, the implementation aspects. We consider the capacity of all the host organizations, so including your main host, also your placement and secondment arrangements, and so on and so forth. So we really consider the full package. This is a very competitive call. Overall, we have on average about a 14% success rate. It requires, the evaluation of the call requires mobilizing, if I may say, an army of experts that all have expertise in the fields, in all of the fields of research, and we are open to all fields of research. So we really cover very broadly the different disciplines and fields and fields of research. So it's a big evaluation process, and it takes time. So the call this year closes on 14th of September, but it takes 5 months to conduct the evaluation. So you will only have the results at the earliest 5 months later, so around mid-February 2023. And then once we have the results, we prepare the grant agreements, and that takes up to another 3 months. So just to give you an idea of the timeline that we are talking about. If you submit an application to postdoctoral fellowships, and unfortunately, if your proposal was excellent but could not be funded, we have a scheme called the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships Seal of Excellence. And the idea is that it's a quality label. So you have to score over, you have to score 85% or more in the evaluation of your proposal. And you will receive the Seal of Excellence, which is a quality label that we give to help you find alternative sources of funding. And you do have countries here in Europe that have developed national schemes to fund researchers that have been awarded a Seal of Excellence. So I've put a link to the opportunities that you can find there as well. So if you're unfortunately unsuccessful, this is something to bear in mind, and to that you can reuse and afterwards to get other sources of funding. In terms of the conditions of the grant, let's say the funding that you get, we split the grant between allowances that are given for the researcher and contributions that are given for the host organization to manage, for one, to manage the grant, and two, to fund to fund activities like research, training, networking activities for the researcher to do the research and to enhance their skills during the fellowship as well. So on the left-hand side are the allowances that researchers receive or can receive if they're eligible. In particular, the living allowance and the mobility allowance on the left-hand side are given to all researchers. The other allowances are only given if applicable. And then I wanted also to highlight, this is amounts that are per month for the researcher, but that are gross. So we do not, it's before taxes. And they are adapted slightly. We have a country coefficient. They are adapted slightly depending on which country you are in. So so it's not quite it will be adapted to the cost of living in the country you're applying in. And the other one I wanted to point out that I mentioned is in the institutional unit contribution. You have this €1,000 per month, which is given to fund research, training, networking activities, so including to fund equipment you might need, fieldwork, courses you might want to do, and conferences, mobility. So if you need to go to a conference, to an event, this can all be covered through this contribution. And here I'm just advertising the next call. It opened last month on the 12th of May and will remain open until the 14th of September. Do not submit, obviously, try to submit your application before the 14th of September because you never know what can happen. And the link is here on the PowerPoint to access the funding, the actual page of the call. So you can go directly there. This is where you find all the reference documents for the call, the link to submit your application, and all the different resources you might find helpful as well. And finally, I just, in case you are still looking for potential host organizations, here are some links to some options, some organizations you could consider reaching out to while looking for a host, either as a main host or as a secondment, or a third country global fellowship host, or a placement, for example. There are quite a few opportunities for you to reach out to different networks to find the best host for your proposal. And finally, the last link is a link to the contacts for our national contact points that you can reach out to. So if you are applying with a main host in a country, each country participating in Horizon Europe will have a contact point, and you can reach out to them for some guidance and some support as well. And this is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much. And I'll wait for your questions afterwards.
Thank you so much, Anouk. Thank you so much. A really very well-structured presentation, a great overview. And I think we saw a lot of questions coming in, I think, but many of them have been answered through your presentation. But we still have a few of them left for you at the end of the session. But let me really thank you for going through a very well-structured presentation and making us more understand the scope of this fellowship, and what are the implications, what is required to apply. And the thing is that, as Anouk said, we are doing pretty good here in India with the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. In the last years, there have been numerous Indian researchers who have been awarded, and I'm very happy that two of them are right now here with us, Dr. Shreya and Dr. Nana Saheb. They are both MSCA Fellows currently doing their postdoctoral fellowship in Europe. One is in Germany, in Göttingen, one is in Oxford in the UK. So I would like to now bring both of you into the Zoom room with us, into the discussion. Rather than having a presentation again, I thought it would be nice to have an engaging talk with you about the fellowship. And I would like to start with Shreya. Shreya, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what motivated you to apply for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship?
Sure, thanks, Samrat. I'm Shreya, and I did my BSc in Life Sciences and Biochemistry from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. And then I pursued my integrated PhD in the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, where I studied bacterial and mitochondrial translation initiation. Subsequently, I did a 2-year postdoc at Newcastle University in the UK, where I studied mitochondrial translation initiation. And after that, I moved to Germany, to Göttingen, to the Max Planck Institute. At that point, it was the Max Planck Institute for Biophysical Chemistry. Now it's the Max Planck Institute for Multidisciplinary Sciences. And here I study human cytosolic translation. More specifically, I study this particular innate immunity protein called shiftless, which inhibits the protein synthesis that is required for viral protein formation. And that is the title of my MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship project as well. So I came here with a contract, a 3-year contract, and then I applied for the Marie Curie Fellowship, and currently I've switched to that. So yeah, that's it about me. I think you're on mute, Samrat.
Oh.
No, you're still on mute.
Is it now okay?
Yeah, now it's good.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you so much for telling us a bit about yourself. And I would also like to ask Dr. Nana Saib, tell us a bit about yourself. And you are actually a 2 times winner of the Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship, which is a very remarkable achievement. And what motivated you the first time to apply, and what motivated you the second time to go for a second one?
Yeah, so I'll just correct Samrat. I'm a 3-time Marie Curie winner, 2 times with individual and 1 time with the global one. But now I decided not to join the global one. I got another principal investigator funding in Ireland. So I'm establishing my own group. So let's start with my own experience. So I'm Nana.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have a PhD or master in physics, but I'm working in the medicine. So that was the change in my career due to the Marie Curie. So I did my PhD and master in very small university from Maharashtra. Even they were not popular and big like IITs or IIScs, I said. But I moved to Ireland in 2015, and then my supervisor in Ireland, he encouraged me to apply for the Marie Curie. And you will be surprised to know that my first Marie Curie was in Poland, and I am the only one candidate who awarded a Marie Curie in Poland that time. So widening country fellowship recently introduced from 2019, I think so. So I got in 2017 and till 18 to 20, I was in Poland. Then I thought, let's say, go with some big institutes, grab the name with the big institute, and then I choose the Oxford actually. So for my career, and in second time I got in Oxford as well. So third time I just was wondering, these both are individual fellowships, and let's try for the global one and how reviewers things, because I worked as a reviewer panel member for Marie Curie as well for last 3 years. And in global one also I got with Harvard Medical School and Belfast University. So this is what my journey. It was not like others to be I would say get once Marie Curie and then try for the getting a position like a permanent position maybe, or maybe a principal investigator grant. But in meantime I got it. So now I left that global one and I will be establishing my own group. And that is what the beauty, because I got the principal investigator grant because of the Marie Curie fellowships. And my work is more on the cancer and cancer nanomedicine. So we work on the nanotechnology developments for cancer drug delivery, cancer therapeutics. We work on the breast cancer, brain cancer projects. Yeah.
Thank you, Nana. I didn't know that you already are 3 times a winner of the Marie Curie, 2 times the individual postdoctoral fellowship, the European one, and 1 time the global. But you already mentioned, that how the Marie Curie has benefited you now in your, next steps as a researcher. So this was also the second point I wanted to ask you both. Like, how has the fellowship benefited you as a researcher in your career, but maybe also as a person? Shreya, could you maybe say something about that?
Yeah, so I think having written the fellowship application, so you have a particular timeline which you would also put forth in your Gantt chart and so on. And ideally, you should also stick to it. So having to stick to this sort of timeline has made me more efficient. Although obviously you're allowed to deviate as science dictates occasionally. It's that has really worked for me and my efficiency. It's also nice to have your own funds. So you don't need to maybe convince your PI that you should go for a particular conference or a workshop because you are funding it for yourself. So usually they're more likely to agree. And this also extends to things like maybe, I don't know, buying a laptop or something. Although for most institutes, you may have to return it to the institute. You have such options. Then another thing that I really enjoyed is as part of the application, you have to talk about public outreach and what you're going to do for it. And yeah, I did that mainly because we had to write that in the application. But now that I'm actually doing it, I'm really enjoying it. So for instance, I spoke with the students of CEBS in Mumbai about my journey in academia and how I moved countries and how I switched between different model systems and things like that. And that was really nice. I'm currently writing an article for Resonance, which is an Indian scientific journal for younger people very often. And I'm also part of something called Cyber Mentor, which pairs female scientists with female high school students to sort of encourage women to join STEM subjects. And so my mentee and I chat once a week about our daily lives. We also have a project we are working on, and that it's something I wouldn't have done without the Marie Curie Fellowship. And I think the last thing that I really enjoy is being part of the Marie Curie Alumni Association. And there are annual in-person meetings. So this time it was in Lisbon after a long time after COVID, and I went for it. And you get to meet a lot of other people in other walks of life, maybe outside academia, inside academia. And this helps you to form a network, especially if you're maybe looking for another position later on. I think it's really useful. So, yeah.
Thank you, Shreya. You mentioned in, the Marie Curie Alumni Chapter. That association as well, which is very helpful also for the fellows to connect with your peers and also for networking and for career development.
Yes.
I just go to Nana Saib. Nana Saib, you mentioned already a bit of your journey that you started in a small university in Maharashtra. You moved to Poland, Eastern European country, and then you moved to, let's say, one of the centers of education, research, and knowledge, Oxford. And even you got the possibilities to go to Harvard. So it already shows the trajectory of the Marie Curie, like how international it is actually, and what exposure you can get, even if you're coming from a, let's say, smaller university in India or anywhere else, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Marie Curie, why we need a Marie Curie? It is a badge, it is a prestige. And of course, it is a mobility. Even the funding agency, our host institute, our supervisor, they always encourage to be a mobile. So you can go for conferences, you can go for outreach activities like school visits. I do frequently from last couple of years during my Marie Curie, not only in UK or Poland, even I did in India or a whole Europe. So this is what the beauty that we can connect with the people. Even I work on the cancer, so I meet with the cancer patients in hospitals, do some outreach or some voluntary activities with them. So this is what the beauty with our science as well. So that Marie Curie has a pillar for that. The another is that we get the career opportunities for many other applications like ERC grants. So I applied for the ERC starting grant. Now I'm planning for the ERC consolidator grant. Some PI grants, similarly in every country, they have their national fundings. UK or Ireland or in Germany, DFG grants are there. So there we are more competitive. If we have a Marie Curie Fellowship, they can identify us that, oh, this guy has already came through the competition, already proven himself or herself. So that advantages we can get. The next is that the mobility, I said, from one country to another country, one institute to another institute, one collaborator to another collaborator. This, even we can get the journal, they invite us for the special issues. This is one of the part of our proposals many times. Developing books, writing books, and other activities, not only stick with the lab science. We can accommodate with the technology transfer offices. We can get knowledge of how technology works. So during my first Marie Curie, we got a European Radar Award, Innovation Radar. That is what, because for a small technology that we developed in the lab, we translated for the market and they awarded it. So these all, badges we get during this Marie Curie, that is what the beauty of the fellowship. And, career paths, everyone, once you have Marie Curie, a lifetime you are a Marie Curie. So every time you introduce that I got the Marie Curie Fellowship during my PhD or after PhD or whatever may be my career stage. So that's what we have to apply. I not just a 3-time Marie Curie Fellowship, but now this year I'm hosting 2 Marie Curie fellowships. So I will be a hoster, and these 2 are Indians, of course. So now this is my second role started to host them, to write the proposal with them, and to guide them how to, and now it's not my career, I have to think for their career as well, because in our career plan, we have to write for ourselves and their selves as well. So this is what actually the experience we can get with this all Marie Curie. It may be a PhD, but postdoc one is more of, here we can get a more freedom for our career advancement. And not only in the Europe, even in India, if you want to come back to India, of course, they consider you. Everyone knows about the Marie Curie Fellowship, their competition. US or any other countries, everyone knows about it. So you will be more competitive and you will be more shiny than others. Even you don't have small papers or less number of papers or others compared to others, but they know that you have Marie Curie means you've gone through such a huge competition. So last year, 2 years ago, 12,000 applications came, and it was a big competition. Now it's reducing because of the new policies by the funding, but the competition is same. So I would encourage these all to be a competitive for such fellowships with our career stage.
Thank you so much, Nana Saib. You are really embodying Marie Curie fully. You have, you've been yourself a successful beneficiary, but now you're also helping potential candidates, to apply and be at your institution. That's really great to see the journey. The Marie Curie has played such an important part in your life and is still playing. And you also, can maybe guide the people, who contact you. And we have people here who want to apply for this Marie Curie Fellowship. And, I want you both to give us, some tips. What are the tips? What were the challenges when you were going through the proposal? Any advice you have for our audience, that would be fantastic. Shreya, could you maybe start with?
Yeah, so something that I found really helpful was the handbook that is provided. So I have the one from Net for Mobility. And so it gives you every single sub point that needs to be addressed within every point. And it's incredibly important to address every sub point. Some of them seem irrelevant to your project, but it's extremely important to say, or to even justify why that particular point is irrelevant, but you have to address every single thing. Then another thing that I was told when I was applying for this was that one shouldn't obviously exceed the page limit, but you should also make sure that you use all the 10 pages. I'm assuming it continues to be 10 pages. Then another thing that I found useful was that you can use smaller fonts in tables and literature references and things like that. And if you do that, you again get more space to write the rest of your application. You might find that some parts of the application feel a little repetitive. So in these cases, sometimes it's okay to cross-reference within your application, but also it might be important to just restate something in a way that's relevant to that particular section. So that's a decision that needs to be made. And obviously, as Anup has said as well, your idea should, of course, be very exciting. It should move forward the state of the art and such. But one thing I really want to point out is I actually have applied for the Marie Curie Fellowship twice. The first time I applied, I didn't get it. And I had applied from the UK at that point, and this was a project in mitochondrial translation. So what happened was, I could consider doing it very last minute. So I maybe worked on it for only a month, which is a bad idea. You should work on it for quite a few months. And secondly, the good thing that happens though is you get a very detailed review of your application. And so I used that review to better my next application, although it was a completely different application from a different university and everything. So I found that to be really useful. Something that was pointed out to me, which might be helpful for you, is that there is a section on knowledge transfer from the researcher to the main host. So this seems a little difficult because your host probably knows a lot more than you do. Or what do you know more than them? But it's actually important to point out something like that, because when I was applying from the UK, I didn't really address that because, yeah, I didn't think I could bring anything to the table. But when I applied from Germany, I pointed out that I had expertise in mitochondrial translation, which the new lab didn't. So perhaps I could start a project on that in the lab, in addition to my own project. And that's something that really helped out. Yeah, and the main thing is to not lose heart. If you don't get it once, you can apply again. And yeah, and most likely you will be more successful this time.
Thank you. Very valuable insights and tips. And I think also, as you said, the Netform Mobility Guide is very useful. There are links also which Anouk shared on her slides, and we will share them with you. So you can go there and have a really detailed look on the call itself, but also the supporting documents. Nana Saib, I think you must have a trick. Otherwise, how is it possible to get it 3 times? Please share some tricks.
So Shreya already mentioned about how to go with the proposal and timeline. So I would go with some other tricks that everyone has in mind that they always think. One is that, do we need a big paper? A number of papers? How many papers? I can see one comment here, how many papers we need for the Marie Curie. And big papers, it really matters? I would say no. I know one guy who applied from India. He has a first author science paper, but he didn't get the Marie Curie. Why? Because he started in the last time, just 15 days before the deadline. And I said, though you have first author science paper and big papers, and he was going in some of the big lab in Switzerland, they have already science and nature paper there. But they failed to mention what is a two-way knowledge transfer between these two guys. They already have science papers together. So what they will make another science. That's what. If he go in a small lab, where no one published science paper, and he can go and he can publish science paper from there. That is what a two-way knowledge transfer. So he failed that. That means we don't need a big paper. Number of papers don't work there. What works? The idea. First, what is your idea? How your host professor is really matter for you. So my first host professor in Poland, she have only 10 papers. That time I have around 15 papers. So my host professor has less papers than me. But she has a 10-year of industrial experience, project management experience. And that's what a two-way knowledge transfer. She transferred all this knowledge. We well written, well mentioned in the proposal as well. So this is what matters. The another is that, do we need a big professors for the proposal? I don't think so. Even 2 times I applied with the small professors, even they were not permanent positions. They were just in a contractual position as a assistant professors. And both time I win it because we have a very good two-way knowledge transfer, all other factors as well. Both professors were women, and we were targeting some women cancer, brain cancer. So that is what the synergy between us. The third is the really big institutes matters. Now, in first time I went to the Poland, which was a small institute, but really a good institute, supportive institute, I would say. Now in Oxford, all it is world renowned for HR and all these policies, but it doesn't matter if everyone goes for the Oxford. I think so. If all fellowships will go in Oxford, Cambridge, or Max Planck or ETH Zurich, but it won't work. So there is another factor is that not only an institute, not only a professor, not only your papers, the real work is your proposal. Writing, how you are writing your CV as well, how you mentioning your weak point and strengths in the proposal, because Marie Curie is not mean to be making a strength guy more stronger. It is to mean by a weaker guy to be a competitive. So these 3 points are really matter. So whenever you are choosing the host, choose your synergy. So what you would like to go, what you are going to do in their lab, what your knowledge will be transferred to their lab and what you will gain new things. That is most important. Second is your idea, how it is novel, not so ambitious. We cannot solve all problems in a single proposal. You can focus on a very small problem and you have to be open. So once you finish this proposal, you will be going for the new funding. So you can mention that I will go with this new fundings. So your question should be open, not over ambitious. Within 2 years, we have to do many activities. So no, science is 50% and 50% is all other outreach, dissemination, all activities. So over ambitious proposal, reviewer immediately understand that it is within 2 years, it will be not happen. And next is just don't be shy or don't be afraid that you have small papers or in less impact factor papers. It doesn't matter. In material science, you can publish in 20, 30 impact factor papers, while in basic sciences, it may be a biology, it may be a chemistry or even physics. Publishing in 4 or 5 impact factors, it's a challenging task. So reviewers, they know, they understand. And career stage as well. Somebody is applying after first year of PhD and somebody is, let's say, 8 year or 7 year of PhD. Reviewers, they understand in 7 years how should be his or her journey, and within 1 year how should be her journey. So all these matters. So don't be afraid that I don't have CV, I don't have. If you have good idea, a good supporter, host institute, and professor, then go with that. And of course, it matters the knowledge from the professor with whom you are applying. His involvement, his or her involvement is most important. Many of the times we have to write more than 15 sections in the Marie Curie proposals. So not we can understand all the sections, all these things. So the host institute support and host supervisor support, it matters for the proposals.
Wow, thank you, Nana Sahib. Really very thorough and very good advice, very pragmatic, and you were saying the right word. Choose wisely. Your synergy is the best fit for you. Don't go for the biggest institution, which have the biggest names, but go for those institutions where you think you can make an impact and which could be a win-win situation, right? So thank you so much. And we're seeing a lot of thumbs up and hearts and emojis coming up towards both of you. Thank you, Shreya and Nana Sahib, for this really very nice, insightful talk with us. And I think that really motivates many of the audience here to go for it. And I would like to bring Anouk back to the screen and straight into the Q&A. Anouk, I hope you are warmed up because there are many questions mostly directed towards you.
Yes,
yeah?
I saw quite a few questions on publications, and this I think has been very well responded already by Nana Sahib. I saw a few questions on the UK as well. Now the UK was shown on on the slide. The UK at present is a candidate associated country, which means that it is benefits from some arrangements. So yes, you can apply with a UK beneficiary under the 2022 call at present, but the UK is not associated yet and could decide not to associate. The association may not be in place by the time that you get the results, and in that case, the risk is that actually, if the UK is not associated by the time you need to sign a grant agreement, so if you're successful, then you will be you risk becoming ineligible, because we cannot give a grant to an organization that is in a country that is not associated to Horizon Europe. So the short answer is yes, you can apply with the UK beneficiary, but there are slight risks because of the current status of the UK, not being associated yet, or not associated altogether. So this is kind of the answer. So then it's up to you if you want to apply to try it or not. Sorry, I'll leave it. That was the first one I noticed. I realized questions on non-academic sectors, and I saw a question on co-fund also, which I'm happy to respond.
Yeah. Yeah, we can try to take them. I think one question was about the interdisciplinary approach of the fellowship. So a concrete question was, can a physicist opt for a mathematician as a supervisor?
Yes, I think again, this was in a way quite well answered by Nana Saheb. Example is actually, as he was saying, the knowledge transfer between the supervisor and the postdoc is part of what you are actually. It's actually the third sub-criteria of the excellence criteria when you're evaluated. So it's not an issue. You just need to find the best fit in terms of supervisors, in terms of organizations participating in your fellowship for the project that you have in mind and for your profile and where you're seeing yourself, your career developing in the future. And in terms of obviously, I've seen a question also on industrial hosts, and this obviously is not we are open. So your main host can be obviously from the non-academic sector. It's they participate less because they're less used to these types of applications. But indeed, it's completely MSCA. We are open for organizations from academics, from the academic and from the non-academic sector.
That comes to another close question to this is the secondments. Is it compulsory to have secondments in the proposal, or can I do it at a later stage when it's really like, I see it's necessary, or it has to be put in the proposal?
So for secondments, well, ideally you would have an idea of where you would which organizations would be best suited to host you for a secondment at the time of your proposal. If essentially, basically, it's a change in what you've proposed to. If you are successful, you are changing what you've proposed to do, and then it will be a discussion between you and the officer that manages your project, whether or not you would need to amend, whether or not they accept a change, an amendment in the project that you've proposed. So essentially, it depends. And
can I do the secondment in the home country? Like, can I do it in India? Like, if I'm an Indian national and I'm going to Europe, can I do a secondment in India?
Yes, they're really, the mobility rule does not apply to secondments. Huh? So you can do them anywhere in the world. You can also, do a secondment in the country where your host organization, your main host organization is. That's not an issue. You can really go anywhere for your secondment.
Okay.
Samrat,
yeah.
just a moment. So, sorry to interrupt. The secondment is actually a part of our proposal. It is not obligatory. It is kind of a, get advantage for the proposal. And many times, even I was a reviewer, I supported many candidates. Many candidates, they get confused with the secondment. They think that secondment means a new training. Secondment is not a training. Secondment means you have to design at least one work package for the secondment. It may be academic sector. Even you can go from one lab to next to your lab in same institute for secondment. But it should be a one work package. There the secondment supervisor must be involved there. You have to develop a new experiments or skills there. And there should be a two-way knowledge transfer as well there. So adding the secondment in the proposal is challenging, but advantageous as well. And I think, as I know, till 2018-19, we have to do secondment in associate countries, but later I think they open for all.
Exactly, it's under the new framework program Horizon Europe, we've opened secondments to worldwide. So this was not the case, I guess, when you both got your fellowship, but it's not. It's now an opportunity. The restriction now applies to the non-academic placement, which is different. So on the placement, there's a restriction as to the sector. It has to be non-academic, and it has to be within member states or associated countries. But it has added value in addition compared to the secondments. And actually, based on the first call that we had in 2021, applicants that submitted an eligible, a strong placement actually had higher success rates than applicants that did not include the placement in their proposal.
Guys, we have questions regarding resubmission now. I think maybe that you already showed it clearly on the slides, Anouk, and explained it, but it's from this year onwards, it's not possible to resubmit the following year if one has scored less than 70%, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And what we mean by resubmission is same researcher and same host organization. So yeah, so the content of the project actually is not what is taken into account in our definition of resubmission. So you could actually
I could resubmit with another institution, another supervisor. I could try again.
Exactly.
Okay. And I can only submit one proposal, right? I cannot submit two proposals.
As a researcher, yes, and it's in the presentation as well. As a researcher, you can only submit one proposal per year. If you submit several, the last submitted one will be the one that's taken. So it might not be the one you want. Only submit the one that you want to go through. It's different for organizations. Which organizations can have several researchers applying for postdocs at the same time.
There are also questions regarding the proposal writing, how to write a proposal. And let me tell you, we are having a dedicated practical webinar for you in the beginning of August, most probably, with a Marie Curie National Contact Point. She will guide you through the parts of the proposal. So you can have your questions ready at that time. You can start preparing now, and and along the way we will then try to help you. And also this webinar will be very useful. So just to let you know that there will be a session from our side on how to write a successful proposal. Okay, Anouk, there's also one question because you also mentioned that you saw it. Like, how does the MSCA-PF differ from the MSCA co-fund postdoctoral? Like, what's the difference?
Yes, so it's two different actions and different calls, but essentially the difference is that postdoc fellowship is an individual grant given to the researcher with the host organization. So it's just one project to deliver. Co-fund, actually, the researchers are not involved in the application to us, the commission. It's the organizations that apply to propose a postdoctoral fellowship program. So then you are part, as a researcher, you submit your application not to us, like PF, but directly to the organization that's already obtained the funding from the EU. And you are part of a cohort of postdoctoral fellows working on individual projects as part of a bigger research and training program for early career researchers. So the opportunities here for postdoctoral fellowships, you apply through through the funding and tender portal. For co-fund, you find the opportunities notably on Access, and there you have all the vacancies for different co-fund postdoctoral programs there that are advertised there. So this would be another option for for researchers at a similar stage in their career.
Okay, thank you for that. Can one also apply for other funding sources? If one has applied for the Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship, is it allowed?
Well, unless you cannot be funded. Basically, when you have the MSCA fellowship, the postdoc fellowship, if you're successful, you sign your grant, you are expected to work 100% of your time on that project. So you cannot apply and sign another grant with another organization during the time that you are a MSCA fellow. However, you can apply while you're waiting for results. Obviously, you can apply to other schemes to co-fund postdoctoral programs, for example, to multiply your chances of ultimately being selected. That's obviously not a problem.
Okay. Also, a question regarding mobility rule. You also explained that rule, but there have been a couple of questions of people who did their PhD, let's say in Germany or in Europe, and they want to do now their postdoc with that host institution. So there's, yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's not, the key rule is related to where were you within the last 3 years. So that is the scope of this rule. If you were and we take the call deadline as the start of those 3 years, then you go back 3 years, and if you have spent more than a year during those 3 years in a country, you cannot apply with an organization from that country. So after the 3 years, if the time that you spent before those 3 years do not count in the eligibility condition. So if you were in the same organization in doing your master's in, I don't know, 2015, and you reapply now for a postdoc in that organization, it's not an issue.
Great. Another question which we have from our Indian science community is often that I did my PhD, but then I started working as an administrative staff or supporting staff for a research organization. Am I still eligible to apply for the postdoc?
Yeah, it really depends on the nature of your work. If your work was not research related, then, and if you can document it, you will be asked for to prove any exception that you are asking for, because this relates to the 8-year research experience rule, which is also new from last year. But essentially, in the 8 years, we only take into account time spent in research. So if you were working in an administrative job and you can demonstrate it in your application, then yes, you can exclude that time period from the calculation of your 8 years.
Yeah. My question was more towards, like, I have not been working in research for 2 years, for instance, but now I want to again work in research and I want to apply for the postdoc. That's possible,
not a,
right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes. In that case, of course. I thought, yeah. And we, like, as I was saying, we've made specific exceptions to remain open to people that have worked outside research for some years and want to come back to it now. So
yeah, perfect. I'm seeing many more questions, but I think we are also at the end of the 90-minute session, and I don't want to stretch too much of our guest speakers' time. Age limit, again, there is no age limit, right? There's only the 8 years rule post PhD degree.
Exactly, no age limit.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we are, more and more questions are coming in, but please feel free to send the questions to us at indiadirections.net. We will try our best to revert back to you and guide you to answers, or guide you to the person who can provide you the correct answer to that. There is also the EU delegation here in India, who also has the Marie Curie actions under their portfolio. So they will also be very helpful to provide you answers on that. And of course, you have seen that Dr. Nalasev has been so kind and shared this email as well. So if you are in the field of cancer research and you need some guidance, you want to apply for the Marie Curie, I think he's the right person to be. And you will also receive the slides from Dr. Anouk with all the links, the useful links for the fellowship. And as I said, we're having 3 webinars coming up. 16th June, 23rd of June, 1st of July on hosting offers, opportunities for you to find your supervisor and host institute in Europe. And we will do a practical webinar on how to write a good, hopefully successful proposal. Yes, with this, I say thank you so much to all 3 of you. for coming in, and I think it was a really excellent session, and I really hope that our audience, could get the most out of it. And now I would say the ball is with you guys out there. You've got now the foundation, take it up, start working. As Shreya said, you have to spend more than only 15 days. You have to spend some months, to write, because it's a very competitive grant, but it's a bottom-up approach. It's about your research project, about your dream project, and the MSCA is there to fund it if it has excellent science in it. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you again to the three of you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. Yeah, good luck to you all.